everyone. Welcome to Interchange. I'm Dan Jones. Thank you very much for joining us today. We have lots of interesting things to talk about. We could know in the next few days whether the downtown Milwaukee streetcar project is a go or a no-go. We'll talk about the possibility of the former Milwaukee County Parks Director, Sue Black, running against her old boss, the guy who fired her, Chris Abele. And we'll talk about UW Badger football shuffling the deck once again. All right, let me introduce everybody. You know longtime newspaper columnist Joel McNally. Kevin Fischer, who spent many years as a broadcast journalist. Denise Callaway, communications and public relations professional. And Lamke, longtime Wisconsin political reporter, now retired. Rick Horowitz will be along with commentary at the end of the show. All right, let's talk first about the long-debated downtown Milwaukee streetcar project. Possible that it could come up for a final vote by Milwaukee aldermen in the next few days. Is it a given that this will be approved even after the mayor admitted his long-term desire is to have this thing, Kevin, grow and grow and grow and grow?
I don't think it's a given. I think the council probably leans towards approval because I think most aldermen, I don't think, grasp the fiscal ramifications of approving a boondoggle like that trolley folly. Don't count on a vote next week. There could be some parliamentary procedures to delay it so that aldermen can go home and maybe get some more feedback from constituents over the holiday break and maybe try to impart upon those constituents the cost involved and the operating cost that will continue once the streetcar is installed. But judging from the comments that have been made so far and by the vote against it in committee the other day, I'm not sure this is a slam dunk, but I think if eventually when it does come down to a vote, I think it wins by a narrow margin.
Denise, somebody told me the other day, you go to any big city, any cool city, they all have something like this.
It's true. They all have some kind of streetcar, some kind of cool or hip public transportation that exists. I think the original idea and the original footprint is something that made sense. This idea of expansion, I think, to somehow try to favor votes of other aldermen or to show that it's an expansive enough project that it is going to somehow be an economic boom to the city, is really probably stretching it too far. The problem with this all along has been that there's been a limited way in which this money can be spent. So I think as we've talked about this, as we have for years and years and years, it's been like trying to put a round peg into a square hole. It's not a good fit, but we've got to do something with the money, I think has been the excuse. The idea, I think, of a small footprint on it makes sense. Expanding it like this, I'm just not sure.
Was it kind of weird when the developer of the fancy couture that they're going to build on the lakefront said the other day, you know, without the streetcar, this project is not going to happen?
Yeah, I didn't buy that at all. He hadn't brought that up before, and he's been talking about this development for at least a couple of years. There's an argument that that can be made that the streetcar will help, but I don't think if the streetcar doesn't go through, that doesn't kill the couture. I don't believe that. Talk about the finances of this thing. Simple arithmetic. It's a $125 million project. They say that there will be 1,800 rides a day on what they're going to build. That's probably about 1,000 people because a lot of them are going to be, back and forth. 1,000 people into 126 million is $126,000 capital investment per person. In addition, you get the controller reports $2 to $3 million a year in operating subsidy. So that's another $2,000 or $3,000 per year per person who's going to use this system. It's just, to me, unbelievably expensive for what you get out of it. If I was one of the 1,000 people, I'd be very happy to ride the thing. But beyond that, I will say, Denise, the point that other cities are doing this has always kind of taken me aback, and it gives me pause in my opposition to it. But I just still can't see the dollars and cents of it.
But you know, when you take a look at how other cities use their streetcar, I mean, it is a little bit different. Those cities in particular that I think about, like Boston, for example, it's a city that really does more to attract visitors and tourists to be able to use that, which then does really kind of bump up the ridership in that. And I think almost serves as an attraction for people. When you're going to go to Boston, you want to be able to take the streetcar. But I do think the challenge that we have is whether or not it is going to be used by more than 1,800 people a day. It has to move beyond the idea of being a novelty to something that people see as a viable form and option of transportation. I think that's going to be the challenge.
Do you think Milwaukee residents will ride this thing, or is it for visitors?
I don't think it's for visitors. We don't have that many visitors, to tell you the truth. We're not a big convention draw city. We're not, there are a lot of things about those other cities that we're not. At the same time, I do kind of understand. It's taken me a long time to come to this position. I mean, we all know that there would have been better uses of mass transit money. Connect Waukesha to Milwaukee, or connect Milwaukee people to jobs that are in the outlying areas or something. But none of those things happened. And here it is, years into decades later, and we still have this money and we haven't used it. And I kind of understand the mayor saying, we got to use it for something. We got to start something. Maybe, but I actually think this as the start of something makes more sense than just a little, like Mr. Rogers' trolley running around downtown or something.
Which is what this would be.
As the start of something that could actually expand makes more sense to me. And it would be a much more long-term project that actually could, the really strong corridors, and obviously between downtown and UWM, that's a strong corridor that already has a lot of riders on mass transit. So you can say, well, we don't need it because they're taking the bus already. But if you could take those bus funds and use that to expand the bus system into areas that are underserved, and use this money to serve that high transportation corridor, it's starting to make a little more sense to me. But boy, if we weren't so ignorant over all these past decades, we could have had a decent mass transit system in this city, which we don't. And that we need to serve the people who are not served by cars, and we never have.
And this
been
ain't it.
willing to do that.
This ain't it. And by the way, to spend it just because we have it, I'm not a student of that philosophy. That's the reason Washington is in the fiscal mess that it's in. This is a finite group of people that are going to benefit from this.
People that need it is the
no,
problem.
No,
people that
it's
need
the
mass
people living in the
transit.
million-dollar condos who are going to go from one top of joint to another watering hole. Those are the people who are going to benefit from this. The inner city folks are not going to benefit from this. And we talked about it a few weeks ago. If you create a TIF district to help finance this, you are going to, over a long period of time, drain property tax money from the Milwaukee Public Schools, from Milwaukee County, from the city of Milwaukee. I'm not sure we want to do that.
I don't say this in a mean-spirited way, but if this comes to be, could this be Barrett's legacy? I mean, Henry Meyer had Summerfest, John Norquist did some beautiful bridges.
Maybe he views that. Maybe
legacy?
he views that as what he wants, but that's not a big legacy in my book.
Well, I think he sees it that way. He's been pushing this for years. And now, all of a sudden, after the November election and the governor's race is out of the way, he makes the big push for a vote, and he's pushing it for a vote. It's the only reason I can see that he has not. I can't think of any big physical accomplishment that occurred under the Barrett administration. And I'm not anti-Barrett. I'm a good guy, good mayor, basically. But this would be the signature physical development, and I think he
And like I
sees it
say,
that
the
way.
start of something makes sense. And you can say he actually moved this city towards mass transit.
It isn't going to be any
which
more
it never had been before.
efficient the further it goes out. They're putting this downtown because this is where the highest density ridership is available. And as they build out, it'll get less use than the numbers I threw out there.
All right, next topic. Some reports and rumors this week that former Milwaukee County Parks Director Sue Black is laying the groundwork for a run for Milwaukee County Executive. Some think that Chris Abele, who holds that job right now, might want to run against fellow millionaire Ron Johnson for the U.S. Senate, but this is all just speculation. If she does run, could Sue Black mount and fund a credible campaign against Chris Abele?
I think she'd be a credible candidate. I don't think she could fund it. He put $1 million of his own money in winning the race in 2011 in the special election after Scott Walker was elected governor. Then Abele didn't have an opponent in 2012. He's poured a few $100,000s to keep his campaign office and campaign staff going. Since then, he clearly put at least $1 million or more in there. I don't know. It remains to be seen how well connected Sue Black is within the political contributor community. She evidently has a good record of raising funds for the parks when she was the parks director. So she would know some of those people and know where to go. I'm told she is, in fact, sitting down with people. She shows a passion for the job. She shows an animus towards Abley. Those are both good motivators. So it could be very interesting. Be a great race if it happens.
Years ago, the county executive, O'Donnell, fired his parks
Yes.
director. That parks director turned around, ran against him. The media loved Dave Schultz, and Dave Schultz was elected. Could it happen again?
It could, but you have to remember the timing of that was a little bit different. And I remember because I actually covered that story and interviewed Dave Schultz, and after he had been fired, and I said, "So what are you going to do?" And he said, "I think I'm going to run for county executive." So that was kind of nice for me. But I think the timing of it was Dave Schultz is someone who was serving as park director then. He was extremely popular. He'd done a lot of things that people saw as being innovative and fresh. And he walked right from that into the race for county executive. It's a little bit different for Sue Black. She's been out of that position for a while. For whatever reason, her efforts around the soccer team here in town, the Wave, that didn't quite work out the way it was supposed to. So I think there's enough distance and maybe some questions that people have that it's not that much of an equal comparison. Dave Schultz was also an incredibly, and I think Sue Black is someone who comes across very well, but Dave Schultz was an incredibly charismatic individual.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that you just can't underestimate. If you're somebody who's coming from really not having any previously elected experience to step into that kind of a position.
Okay, as long as we're talking about rumors, Kevin, what about the rumors that David Clark, well, he really doesn't want to be mayor. Maybe he'll want to run for national office. That's why he's building up his national media appeal right now.
I haven't heard much circulating about that, but I would love to see that. I think he'd be a formidable candidate in any race that he runs for. The big mistake you make when discussing Dave Clark is underestimating him, and I think a lot of people did that in this last race. I think that he would be more apt to run for mayor. He's talked about the city a lot. He's talked about issues and problems relating to the city. We know his feelings about the current mayor. I think he's got a passion. If he's going anywhere, that's where his direction would be. Can I just say something quickly about the Sue Black? Yeah, she could mount a good campaign. Funding it is a different story. The name recognition, not there yet. She's never held political office. She's never run for political office. Very smart, very likable, and again, not to be taken lightly, but hasn't done much lately and hasn't been in the public eye. And going against that war chest, even though Chris Abley hasn't locked up that liberal base and would probably have a lot of union opposition against him, and is sort of a milquetoast personally. I think he still would have big advantage, especially because he's the incumbent, and he's well financed.
Is the job Abley's as long as he wants it?
I don't know for sure because actually, one of the few times I've ever agreed with Kevin politically, I think Abley has alienated a lot of his Democratic support. At the same time, he has many advantages. So I don't know. At the same time, he's fallen right into the pattern, and this is something I personally would criticize him for. Of Scott Walker pattern of the best thing a politician can do is never raise taxes, and boy, I think tax cut politics, all you can do is have less and less, and let more things get deferred and more things in the parks to be deferred, and sometimes you have to spend money to make money, and you have to spend money to create a good city and a good county. But so he refuses to do some of those things. At the same time, he can get almost anything he wants out of the legislature, including, if the county board doesn't like me, I'll just get rid of the county board. And so, he has
people like that idea.
He has a lot of things of getting his way, and he's not used to not getting his way. So there could be a challenge campaign against him. I'm not sure Sue Black is the one to do it. She might be. When she was running the parks, she she was very well liked. But as Kevin says, that's fading into the past now, and people, say, what has she been doing? And I don't know what kind of a candidate she could. She could be a populist kind of
Well,
candidate.
that's the question.
that
Ideologically, who or what is Sue Black? What kind of campaign would she run? What would her platform be? I have no idea.
Right, and certainly there were some great things that she did around the parks, and she was very creative around work that she did around the parks to raise money. But let's take a look at some of the big issues that Milwaukee County has to deal with, and what is her experience level around that. It is very different to run the park system than it is to figure out what we're going to do about mental health in this community and how we're going to attract
people saw
those
her as
issues.
a good administrator. We still don't know, why Chris Abele chose to fire her. He had never said. And we don't know if there's something there that would come out in the campaign. So it's probably way too early for us to even be tossing this stuff out and making stuff up about it.
I don't know either, but I'm not sure it's anything nefarious. I mean, she had the record at the state level
Right.
and under Scott Walker of not towing the line for her bosses. She may have been a good administrator, but when she had to deal up rather than down.
But when
On more than one
when
occasion.
Chris Abele ran for county executive, he held her up as a great administrator that he was going to give more power to.
Right.
And then,
But then he started working with her.
And then suddenly thought otherwise.
And I like Sue Black, but there must be something, okay? Because it's not just one instance, it's a couple of instances where higher-ups were not real thrilled with her style or how she was doing things. That would probably be a campaign issue.
All right. Let's go on to the next topic. Let's talk Badger football for just a few minutes. After just 2 years, Coach Gary Anderson jumps ships for a job in Oregon. That means Athletic Director Barry Alvarez will be back on the sidelines for the upcoming Outback Bowl game. And the reported favorite for next head coach is Wisconsin native and former UW assistant coach Paul Christ, who is now head coach in Pittsburgh. This was surprising. I thought everybody thought, okay, this is a destination job for this guy. He's going to be here for a decade, and boom, he's gone. It does make you wonder if there was some tension there with Alvarez looking over his shoulder all the time.
Well, it kind of does. I mean, I thought it was funny though that the way this story was reported, it's a stunning move for a coach to decide to take another job. It's never stunning when coaches get fired, and they're thrown away, by the dozens. But when a coach on his own decides to take another job, that's somehow, a surprising thing, to go where you want to be and get paid what you want to be paid, or whatever. We don't know. Actually, this is the perfect night for Gerard Randall to be here because he actually knows the answer to all this stuff that we're making up.
You know why he's not here?
Gerard would say, well, when I was talking to Alvarez yesterday.
You know why he's not here? He's interviewing for the doggone job. That's what I think.
Well, what's disturbing to me most about this is that this is the second coach in a row who was left abruptly without any respect towards Barry Alvarez, who seems to be a jolly good guy every time you see him on TV, but you got to begin to wonder if he doesn't meddle too much, which you would expect. He had been the football coach for 15, 16 years.
Exactly.
Right, so you wonder if that's going to happen again. On the other hand, Alvarez is 67. He's not going to be there forever himself either, so maybe, Chris is hired, puts up with Barry meddling for 3-4 years, and then
He's
we
the
all
new athletic
move on.
director. Right.
Don't you wonder, or didn't you for at least a few seconds think, I wonder if after that Ohio State loss, Alvarez said something like, that better not happen again. And Anderson went, I'm out of here.
I had, thanks. I'd actually forgotten about that for a brief moment. They say those losses, those kinds of things can happen, but one would hope not too frequently. And I really don't think things happen that frequently in terms of two teams that are supposed to be as closely matched as Ohio State and Wisconsin are. I think you have to take a look at beyond the players then, what's the issue around coaching? And maybe there were some coaching tensions between Alvarez and between Peterson. Alvarez built that program to where he wants it to be. And while he certainly is athletic director for the entire university and all sports that are there, you got to think that football's his baby. And he wants to make sure that what he built remains at the top of its game. So I would imagine, I mean, I don't know how you can't imagine that there are conversations that the athletic director, who is the former football coach, has with the current football coach about what needs to happen.
Amen.
And I think that's because he's that passionate of an individual about Wisconsin athletics.
This does not pass the smell test. This happened with Bielema, who had a total disregard for the program and the school and the players and just said, I'm out of here. Okay, it happens once, it's a fluke. That just doesn't happen in college sports. But now it happens again 2 years later. Yeah. So you have to wonder, and Anderson today said, no, it has nothing to do with the coach. He never meddled. He and I got along just fine. But you have to wonder if there was a conflict there, a personality difference between the two. I do believe the bigger issue was though, he's a West Coast guy. He's a Idaho, Utah, Oregon kind of guy. And family played a big part here. I think his family probably wanted to be out there where he has roots. And he goes from one big conference to another big conference where he probably wants to be, and he never really settled in with Wisconsin, whereas Chris, who's a Wisconsin guy, a Madison native, a highly respected coach, a successful coach, I think he's going to be a very good fit.
You know, all those things are true, but, you know, if you want to expand your program, if you want to build the best program that you can, it can't always keep going back to people who think the way you think or who came out of your system and out of your program. I just think that I'm sure he's going to be a great coach, but I think there's a little bit of danger into going back to what's comfortable in terms of the long-term impact
He's
on your program.
done well at Pitt, which has not.
But
But it's only
not a football
50-50.
power.
His record's only like 17 and 17.
With a so-so program.
Right,
Yeah.
right. You have to look at where the program was when he came in.
Yep.
So I mean, but I do think there's a little bit of danger and comfort. And I thought maybe was I the only person who thought it was kind of weird for Alvarez to say, I always keep a short list.
Because he must think in the back of his mind, maybe somebody's going to leave pretty soon.
Yeah.
I say good riddance to Anderson. He should have beat LSU. He should have beat Northwestern. And my gosh, we should have put up a better fight against Ohio State.
I'm not talking about that game.
All right, so you know what? Fine. You want to leave go, especially where there's talk now that he was thinking about or maybe even interviewing for the Oregon State job while he should have been preparing the Badgers for the biggest game of the year against Ohio State.
But if you're a coach and you're in the biggest game of the year, believe me, that is on your mind, not any of those other things. You know, he is a winning coach, and he had a very good record. And boy, the game in front of you is all you're ever thinking about.
Unless you're thinking about yourself and
a couple $1 million, but
hopefully
yeah.
he signed his new contract before that loss. All right.
Well, let Oregon State have him.
All right. More than a week after a grand jury in Staten Island, New York, decided not to indict a white policeman for the death of an unarmed black man, that's the chokehold case, the protests are continuing. They're even expanding in some places. You might think there is nobody out there supporting police behavior, either in that case or more generally. Not true. In fact, Rick Horowitz has located one of those supporters.
Oh, good, you made it. Yeah, so anyways, the guys and me, we got the TV on, and the only thing they've got is the demonstrations. Bunch of kids holding signs and shouting like it's any of their business. Wasn't them who got shot. Wasn't them who got choked. They should just keep out of it, okay? Let the cops do their jobs. They got enough trouble as it is, trying to keep things quiet when you got all these that was the problem, you ask me. They're huge, both of them. The guy in, what do you call it, Ferguson, and the other one here? What are they, like 290, 300 pounds each? Big black guys like that? Of course a cop's going to be scared. Scared for his life. Do whatever he's got to do. They're just asking for trouble, big black guys like that. Just asking people to be scared. The cop, meanwhile, all the cops got to defend themselves with is some puny little nightstick and some mace, maybe a taser. So, of course, he pulls his gun. What do you expect him to do? Just sit there and wait for backup squads? No way. And anyways, it's like the cop in Ferguson said, the mace could have gotten his eyes if he used mace. His own eyes, I mean. That's not going to happen with a bullet, am I right? Right? See? And the one here wasn't the cop who made this guy have asthma. How was he supposed to know he's putting a chokehold on a guy with asthma? And did the guy in the chokehold, did he even one time try to explain? Say, hey, officer, excuse me, officer, but I got this medical condition which gets, exacerbated when you got your arm around my neck? Not even once. Guy just keeps saying, I can't breathe, like a half a dozen times, maybe a dozen times, I don't know. Hey, message to asthma guy, you're not getting through here. How about you try saying something else? Or how about just shut up? Maybe then they'd know you were having problems, huh? But nah, just keep saying the same thing over and over. And that's somehow the cops' fault? This guy dying is somehow the cops' fault? Sure it is. Give me a break. Sure it is. Sure.
Well, thank you, Rick, and thank you so very much for joining us. Stay warm. Please enjoy the rest of your weekend.